Hello, hello, hello. Alex here, and I was debating whether this was going to be a turd or treasure, but we don't have a ton of reviews here for you. So I think this is going to be sort of a prototype mini episode. So what we have here are the review embargoes went up, so we can talk about Yakuza Like a Dragon, and we're giving you initial impressions and a review of how it performs and how the game is on the current Xbox One and Xbox One S, the baseline, the basically the lowest end systems you can play it on, and we'll be giving a full review, including how it performs with the upgrade to Xbox Series X once we get our hands on that hardware next week. So in the meantime, it's sort of a quick first look into the world of Yakuza and just sort of how it performs and how it is. And also wanted to include a review of a couple PDP Nintendo Switch controllers that we were sent for review. So this is sort of the best place to put them in. And it's going to be just a quick and easy show just to get some of this information out there before the flurry of next-gen stuff comes out next week. So without further ado, let's get into the PDP controllers.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Our friends over at PDP Gaming sent over a couple of their new Nintendo Switch wireless controllers. Now, these were sent over for review, and I spent the last 24 hours pretty extensively trying them both out to see just where they stand as far as build quality, as well as playability and just overall value. So they sent over the wireless, little wireless controller. It's that little one that looks a little bit like some of the 8-bit Do controllers, but a little different. It's a little thicker, and it has a similar color aesthetic to the Switch lights, and like just the smaller, completely portable Switches. In fact, it looks a lot like the Pokemon one that I have. It feels a little odd at first because I got big hands, but the analog sticks are quite good. And then I got used to it after playing with it for a fair bit. So I was pretty impressed. There's no rumble in this. A lot of the controllers that are third-party don't have rumble, and it doesn't obviously have any amiibo support. But if you're looking for something that's easy to put on the go, especially since it'll fit in most like Switch, even like travel cases, you don't have to have a special case or another or extra large one to take like a full-size Pro controller. The fact that it will fit in most of them because it's so slim, charges via USB-C, comes with a cable, 40 hours of advertised battery. That seems to be right. I've been playing with a full charge and it doesn't seem to be going down at all. As far as how does the D-pad feel? Now, D-pad for a third party feels pretty good. It's not going to obviously match the Nintendo one, and that's just because Nintendo sort of has the market on that. But it does have good placement of the buttons. For anybody that's got kids, it's going to be a good sized kids controller. The L and R are fairly close together. The L1, R1, or R2, whatever, the 1 and 2 buttons there. But you do get used to using them as well. And I had a bit of an issue initially pairing it. When it says, plug it in and it should detect, I actually had to go and do a completely wireless syncing option to pair it, because it would plug in and charge, but it wouldn't detect it as a wired controller until I did that. Once I synced it the first time, I can plug it in and it will detect right away. So I don't know if it was a little glitch or something with my system, but overall, once I figured that hiccup out, it worked pretty well. And another interesting one is it's got some weight to it. The second controller we were sent is the Faceoff Wireless Deluxe controller. We had a Deluxe wireless controller from PDP sent to us before, the see-through sort of afterglowy one. And now they've got ones that have interchangeable faceplates. This is sort of a yellowish design. You can pop the faceplate off and put different colors on, different patterns, designs. Also includes different lengths of analog sticks, which is pretty neat. That's something that I know Birdman would like, so he's going to get this controller once we stop self-isolating for a bit and we're able to transfer it over to him so he can test it out even more and play with it. This also includes a 40-hour battery life, and it's pretty fantastic. It feels pretty premium when you're holding it, which is really nice. It's not a cheap, lightweight piece of plastic. It's actually got some heft to it. It does include a 1 meter charging cable for it. This, as well as the little controller, have full motion control built in. So if a game requires motion, it will work. That's one thing I forgot to mention. So the only things these guys are missing are the haptic feedback, but that's just an expensive thing. I don't know if Nintendo's even licensing it out, and no amiibo support. But to be honest, I don't know how many people even use them as much anymore. My brother's a huge collector. He collects, I think he has every single one of them. I remember one year for Christmas having to find him, what was it, Dark Bowser or something that came with the Skylanders game that was a Toys R Us exclusive because it was one of the few he didn't have. So he's got everything. So for him, he always has to use a Pro Controller because he wants to have them all there displayed. But I would say for the average user, for the price, you're getting a pretty good deal with these guys. I do like the color. I didn't think I would like a yellow, a sort of neon yellow looking controller, but I do. And the advantage is you can pop off the faceplate and change the faceplates. You can order them and get them from PDP. So, if you're looking for an extra controller but can't afford the $100 it costs to pick up an official Pro Controller, this is a pretty good compromise because you're only compromising just 2 features. Everything else seems to work great. 40 hours of battery life. Hell, that beats most of the first-party controllers for the other systems. I think I only get 7 hours out of a PlayStation controller, and with Xbox, similar, maybe 10 hours before you have to charge. So the fact that you're getting 40 out of this is pretty sweet, and that's probably where that weight's coming from. It's probably a lot of it has to do with the size of the chunky battery inside of this, but both apply a great deal of design and technology into these, with being able to interchange buttons on this, and then having obviously the small controller for the little one. But I would say they're 4 slightly different markets. You're probably not going to be taking the Faceoff wireless Deluxe on the go unless you're packing up your whole dock and everything and taking it that way. I think that with the little wireless controller, it's more for portability's sake. So it might even be worth picking up one of each. But if you have to pick up one for Christmas or something, maybe go with the little one. You can fit it in the stocking. It's so small. And that's pretty much going to do it. We're going to have a review of the PDP Xbox Series X dual, what is it called? The slim dual charger, their charging dock, as well as some play and charge kits that they sent over on this week's show later on in the next few days. And hopefully we'll be able to check out some more of their next-gen products in the future. But I'm very happy to say that PDP is keeping up the quality when it comes to their third-party licensed products here. So I'll put links in the description for the show so you can check it out. You're probably going to want to pick up at least one of these guys if you're looking for an extra controller. Because I've had people come over, family, because right now we're keeping our bubble small. And I found that I was lacking. I have 2 Pro controllers, and then I had the one PDP, their Deluxe wireless for it. And, that was 3 people that could play a game, because let's be honest, I'm not a big fan. Most people I know are not big fans of the Joy-Cons. They're just too small for our hands. So having a 4th controller, a second, third, or 4th controller, having them be one of these controllers is probably a good idea.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
This is going to be a quick insight, sort of first impressions I have of Yakuza Like a Dragon. Our friends over at Sega sent a early review copy on the Xbox platform for me to check out. And while we wait for the next gen Series X to come out, which I'll be picking up day one, we sort of had to go, okay, how are we going to approach this review? Because the standard or last gen edition is already out, so we can review it on there, but will it really be something that we can give it our all when it comes to seeing what the full experience is like if we're not playing it on the next gen hardware? So this is the solution we came up with, sort of dividing the review in half. Here's initial impressions of how it works, and specifically we wanted to review it on the baseline consoles. We didn't need to go with, there's no point in reviewing it on a 1X when the Series X and S are coming out, because they're going to eclipse it. And a lot of people still don't have, like in the case of us, Michael still has, like Birdman still has a Xbox VCR. Like, we're talking the original Gen 1. He has a day one console. A day one console where he's loading games from an external hard drive because, it's a little faster, not an SSD, just a little faster. And in my case, I was like, okay, let's go with the S, because that's probably what most people have. It's sort of the middle ground console to review on. It's a baseline. It's not as old, as ancient as the initial release. And as a matter of fact, what I chose to review it on was like, hey, I asked a friend, can I borrow your system so that I can, get that experience? And he said, yeah. It is a Xbox SAD, the all digital edition, which I had never actually had my hands on, which I knew was an S that just doesn't have the optical drive in it. And I went, okay. So I took it, and then I specifically borrowed from my brother. He gave me a blank slate, cleared NVMe SSD, USB 3. Was it 3.1 Gen 2? We're talking like pretty much the fastest. It's a 3.1 Gen 2, and it can also use Thunderbolt. External hard drive, 1 terabyte. And it's actually, interestingly enough, rated for the exact same speed that you would be getting out of the internal and the expansion card that Seagate has made for the Series X. It's obviously not going to get that speed because it's connecting via USB here, but the actual internals of the drive will be the same speed. So I thought, okay, that's kind of fun. Let's see how that goes. I installed the game initially on the internal hard drive, and then I went, okay, let's boot it from here. And so booting from a 5400 RPM hard drive on the base Xbox One S, to get in from a cold boot was about 60 seconds or so till I was able to control anything. Just shy of 60 seconds, actually. And then I went, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to move all the data from there over onto the SSD. So I did that, which was fairly quick, actually. It maxes out at about 110 megs per second you can transfer because of internal drive limitations. And then because it's using USB 3 on the back of the system, it's 3.0 or 3.1 Gen 1 or 3.2. They all use the same naming scheme now for the same exact speeds. It will max out at a theoretical throughput of just over 600 megabytes per second. So let's say it's getting about 550, 560 on average when it's going to read. So in theory, it can be up to 5 times faster than what is with the internal drive if it's optimized to take advantage of that, which it obviously isn't. But we then boot it by making sure that I cleared all user data so that it had no save file. So it was if we were doing a cold boot. Clicked start, timed it, and we went from just under 60 seconds to about 34 to 35, which, roughly about half the time. So it already was faster. I went, okay, so this is going to be the best way we can play the game on this current gen console. It was playing from an external SSD that's using an NVMe drive that's super quick. Okay, so the short of taking the system apart and then replacing the internal drive, you wouldn't get any faster. So in booting there, I went, okay, started up the game. First thing I noticed were some accessibility options that were pretty good. You can change text size, you can change the language being spoken, you can have it force subtitles for everything or not for everything. As far as audio is concerned, very impressed. And it defaults to stereo, but if you switch it to surround, you can then actually put the position they are relative to where you're sitting. So, for instance, if you have, facing downward to the back of you, or facing, right at your back, surround speakers, you can set the manually on the screen where you're sitting in relation to them and position them to be behind you, and that will affect where the positional audio is. Or in my case, I use them in a side configuration, which I think a lot of people are doing nowadays if you don't have a 7.1 system. And that would mean that it's basically that your left and right ear are at the same position where the back and rear speakers would be, and then you have your front, left, and right at whatever angle you decide to put them at, and your center is directly in front of you. So I set it up that way, and it was quite good. It's very robust, the system. It's designed so that instead of having things sound like they're, even though my speakers are at my side, that it sounds like it's coming from behind me, it's now interpreted that so that things will come from beside me, and then it will interpret, things that would be directly behind me might sound a little farther away on purpose because the speakers aren't in that position. So it's actually a really good system. I've seen it only done on a few games before. One of them surprisingly being, I think it was Star Ocean remastered on the PS4. Was it Star Ocean Till the End of Time? Or no, not Till the End of Time. Star Ocean A New Hope remastered 4K edition. That had options for that. And I think it even had height options for how high they were off the ground, which is pretty sweet, which is like full 360. I imagine a lot of new games using this on the PlayStation 5 will have that Tempest engine. You might be able to select that sort of thing that's built into the API. But enough, audio nerding out about how this is set up and getting into the main game. For the review copy, there wasn't an option to change difficulty level. It's an option in the menu, so it's set to normal, but it looks like there'll be others. I just couldn't see it. It's probably a day one patch for that. Starting the game, it was very apparent to me that they spent a great deal of time with the voice actors and getting the right people cast, getting the right, kudos to the dub and kudos to the localization team. One thing I will say, and it's fairly important, the game does not perform well frame rate wise on the base Xbox One and the S. We're hovering somewhere in the 20s. That would be my best guess. It's visibly stuttering, and it doesn't matter if it was installed internally, installed on an external drive. I've tried it multiple ways. You're getting a visible lag, and I've even done things like set my TV, forcing it to 720p, even forcing it to 1080p, letting it go to the natural 4K upscaled. And it doesn't matter what it's set at; it's the same frame rate. You get some pretty bad frame tearing. That shouldn't be such a surprise to people that were reading into things or seeing what Digital Foundry and others that really go into frame rate testing show, that it's an engine that is not super well optimized for either platform right now, for either next gen or this, and next gen basically be brute forcing its way through. But it was a little surprising that it was having a hard time hitting its target of 30, to the point where you start the game and even the cutscenes are kind of stuttery. And when you get to the very beginning, you're running. I'm not going to go into spoilers of the game, but you're running towards somebody. It's a similar gameplay mechanic that was used in Judgment that came out a couple years ago, which I really enjoyed. And that worked a lot better, but that might have been because I was playing it on the PS4 Pro, and I was forcing 1080p mode in there, so it was not stressing the CPU nearly as much. But you're running, chasing towards somebody for hilarious reasons. This game is not safe for children, believe me. This is some of the most crass, ridiculous, over-the-top humor I've ever seen. But I'll get into that a little bit later. But you're chasing somebody down, and once you catch up to them, it's supposed to seamlessly transition into a cutscene. When it works perfectly, but it doesn't, at least on the entry-level Xbox gens. You abruptly freeze, and I thought my system completely locked up, and it happens every time. It's repeatable, no matter what, believe me. It will freeze frame, and then bam, you're in the middle of a cutscene. It doesn't even start at the beginning of the cutscene. It just has trouble buffering and loading it. And then once it's in the cutscene, you're like, what? And that happens to multiple cutscenes. It has trouble transitioning between it, and it's not a matter of it being an external drive or internal drive. It just seems to be bottlenecked really hard on the original one and the S. That being said, it should be alleviated on the 1X, but unless you've already got a 1X and you're planning to, you're probably going to be going for the Series X or S for this, or for the PlayStation as well. I imagine it would be performing a little better on the base PS4 and Slim because it has that GDDR RAM versus the slower RAM and the slower CPUs in the Xbox. But it is what it is. The game is playable, especially once you hit the battle system, because the battle system is turn-based and it feels very much like the instanced battle system that they had in Fist of the North Star Paradise Lost, which was, I think I named it my game of the year a couple years ago. It was the game I was blown away with and surprised with, because it uses a similar engine. It's the same people that have tweaked it, but instead of it being an action engine where you go into it goes into a turn-based system very similar to a Persona. In fact, it's very, very similar to Persona. This is like, what if you mixed Persona 5 specifically, and Persona 5 Royal, with the ridiculousness of like a Saints Row 3 and 4, specifically 4, and then sprinkled on a whole bunch of over-the-top, crass, ridiculous, like not safe for work humor in it. I will say this, that the joke, the reason you're chasing down the character at the beginning, this is the prologue, is you chase him down. He's got some VHS tapes because this takes place 20 years ago. And when you catch up with him, you're mad at him for selling bootleg pornos. But they're not pornos, it's bestiality. And his argument is, it's not illegal. In fact, you might like it. And he's like, but you can't be selling it to kids. And then you beat him up for that. And then it goes into the battle system, which is ridiculous. You get there's mechanics involved for beating people up and hitting them while they're down before they get the chance to recover. You can go into shops, and it's everything appears as realistic as possible in real life. Like, you can go into shops, see the products on the walls. For the reviews, at least now before the game officially releases, we don't have access to a lot of the mini games, like the arcade stuff. That's sort of a staple in the Yakuza and other Sega titles, so that'll come later, but it's always going to be good. But other than the performance hiccups on the base consoles, it's a very fun and engrossing game. I would say if you've got current gen, if you're planning to upgrade, you've got you got a plan to get an Xbox or PlayStation 5, and you've either got it pre-ordered or you're planning to get it in the next little bit, and your only way to play is on a base Xbox One or an Xbox One S, you may want to hold off, because the performance did deter from my initial play so far. In that it's locked up pretty hard. I'm sure that there can be patches to fix it, but if you've got PS4, PS4 Pro, Xbox One X, right now, and those are your main pathways that you're playing, you're not going to be upgrading to next gen right away, then definitely pick it up, and pick it up here. Just mitigate your expectations for frame rate, because these systems are getting pretty long in the tooth, but it's one of the most exciting games I've played so far, and I can't wait to see how it performs on next gen and finish the complete review, and we'll talk about how it all works that way soon after the game releases and soon after the console releases and we have a chance to upgrade. This is one of the titles that when you activate it on the Xbox One system, it will do smart delivery and automatically give you the next gen version. So it's something where you can pick it up now, play it, and really enjoy it, and then really reap the benefits of the next gen experience once you get your next gen console.
Basically, he's a geek, sir.
Leave me alone, geek boy.
Holy shit, you geeks are badass.
And that's going to do it for this quick edition of the prototype. Interesting products for sure. I'll give you a quick update here on what we've got coming for the show this coming weekend. We have more from PDP, which are the Play and Charge Kit and the slim charging dock for the Xbox Series X and S, as well as we'll have Pikmin 3 Deluxe Edition, a quick review of that. I know Birdman is working on something else for it, and we are working on some other review games that have come in. We're working on Assassin's Creed. That will be, I think, the following week is when we'll get the review out. It just all depends on when we can complete it and when we can check it out on next gen. Because right now we're sort of in a weird place. We've got current gen hardware, we've got next gen games to review. So, and most of these games are playable on both platforms. So what we're trying to do is sort of give a 1-2 punch. Here's our impressions on current gen, and here's our final review on next gen. And we'll be doing that for Watch Dogs as well. They'll likely be that for Assassin's Creed, Yakuza Like a Dragon, obviously, as well as some other launch titles that are coming. We'll be doing shorter, quick impression reviews on some of the next-gen games that we've purchased ourselves that are not being provided to us. So I'll be doing that for Demon's Souls. I might even be streaming that if things work out. I don't know. I'd like to try that and get into streaming. I'll be also doing Sackboy. We'll probably talk quickly and briefly about how what's it called? What's the built-in game with Astro's Playroom? That's what it is. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And as far as Xbox, I think we might be doing... I'm not sure yet of confirmation, but we might be talking about Gears Tactics, as well as some other titles that we will probably be sent to the next week or so. It's going to be a very busy next week. I have booked transit so I can go pick up the systems early on Tuesday and Thursday, and Birdman, I think, is having his delivered. He was, I think, charged already for the system, so they might even arrive early. Who knows? That's weird if they're breaking street date and all that stuff. But whatever. We're confirmed to have all of our consoles ready to go. Everything's paid off, and we're, eagerly awaiting how everything turns out. He'll be getting the expansion card for the Seagate expansion. I couldn't afford that, so that's not happening on my end. I will actually be doing something a little different. I have two 500 gig SSD drives, both rated to read at somewhere from 400 to 500 megabytes per second, so 4 or 5 times faster than what the internal drives would normally be, or an external laptop drive. And I have USB 3 and 3.1 external cases for them. I'm going to use one for each system for the PS5 and one for Xbox Series X, just to store and play the backwards compatible games, or to have extra storage to back up data to if I fill up the drive too much, if we have too many review copies at once. I am not somebody that likes to keep too much on my system at a time anyway, and I have fast enough internet. I've got gigabit internet with unlimited data, so I don't mind having to download a few hundred gigs a month, or even if I had to download a terabyte a month, it doesn't matter to me. And I'm not sharing my internet with anybody else, so it doesn't matter the bandwidth. Big deal. But I know that's a big concern for a lot of people, but it is nice to have something where it can, load a little quicker. If we're loading back and forth, even under ideal circumstances, that means the fastest I can download is 100 megabytes per second, even with gigabit, divide by 8, blah, blah, blah. So roughly about 100 and 110 megs if it peaks. Whereas if I've got them downloaded and I've transferred them to an external drive, even if they are SATA USB 3 SSD drives, I'm still theoretically being able to read. Let's say I copy them to the drive, and then I say I do want to play them from the internal drive, or if I back up, native code games that can't play from an external, but I want to back it up to there, reading them back from the drive, I'll hit that theoretical limit of 550 to 600 megabytes. So I'll still be able to transfer data from my external SSD to the internal SSDs at 5 times faster than I can download. So to me, that makes sense to have that set up. And I already had the drives lying around. The only thing I had to purchase, I had to pay $20 because I have 2 USB-C cases that would not read on the Xbox, even the Xbox One, as USB 3 because it had a different controller for USB-C. It just, whatever, it read it as USB 2, which means you can't copy data to it. So I had to pay $12 for one, and then I think $11 for another external case that's USB 3 that uses the old USB micro with power, blah, 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 that we'll be using to plug into each system. So big deal, cost me 20 some odd dollars. And I already had the other drives in my computers. Whoop-de-doo-doo. So that's what I'm going to be doing for that. Birdman is going to be, like I said, having the extra memory card plugged in right away because him being more mobility disabled than me, he can't just get up and switch things on his console. That's like a process of having to get into a wheelchair, move over, hopefully not knock anything over, transfer it out, and then go back to getting out of the wheelchair. That's not feasible for him in most senses of the word. He needs something that's sort of dedicated and working already. So he just got it that way. And when it comes to the PlayStation, he's got the diskless version, so he's going to need more storage. That we're waiting on the whitelisted and promoted drives to be announced, and if it costs $200 or $300 for a terabyte, he's probably going to go with that. I'll probably end up going with a 500 gig. Because I don't think I'll need much more than that personally, because I generally only keep the games I'm currently playing on my system. So if I get 3 or 4 games for review, I'm never really going to have more than 5 games on my system at once. That's just sort of how I am. Whereas he wants everything. So if that's the case, he's going to need a 1 or 2 terabyte, and I'll probably be the one to install it for him. Lickety split, it's on there. We're good to go. But that's sort of the state of how everything is right now. We still have some Switch stuff. Obviously not a whole lot coming right away, except for that Pikmin 3 Deluxe review, and then maybe Hyrule. Not 100% sure yet on that, and we'll see what comes. Holiday gift guide will be coming the first week of December, and after that we take our hiatus. And before that, we will have probably a quick prototype that we'll put out that just sort of talks about the Black Friday deals everywhere. I'm assuming Black Friday and Cyber Monday are sort of extended out longer because they're not going to want a lot of people in stores, at least in Canada, and I think the States as well. So it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. We are going to try to have a lot more video content. It's going to be amateurish. We're not investing a lot of money, which we don't have anyway, in lighting and equipment. Maybe get an LED light to help with streaming. Maybe if I do streaming a lot more, I'll move I'll have it set up so that I can move my system over to my my computer desk so that it's not like 7 feet away from the TV with a camera pointed at me, and I could set it up that way. I have 75 hertz monitors, which aren't super high res or anything, or they're 1080p monitors, but playing 1080p 60, or maybe it's variable refresh rate on like Demon Souls, and it should be fine as far as getting the graphical fidelity, because at least then we'll know it'll be locked to 60 FPS minimum. And then maybe come the new year, if I get Christmas money or something, I'll buy a backdrop that has like a photo backdrop that has a green screen, so that I can sort of section myself off and have use the PS5 camera to auto chroma key it out, and then maybe get a light to go behind the camera, like a ring light or something. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. It's interesting. We're not going to go super crazy on that, but we do want to enter more into the streaming realm of things, because we are primarily an audio, traditional radio style show, and it's sort of fun, new generation, new ideas. We'll see how everything goes. That's going to do it. I've taken up enough of your time. Check us out on our new website, new version of the website, ThisWeekInGeek.net. Let us know what you think. Feedback at ThisWeekInGeek.net. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't. And check us out. We'll be doing stuff on Twitch. We'll throw that in there whenever we want to promote it. We'll let you know. And, we're on Spotify. That has been doing quite well for us. If you're not on Spotify, you can still check us out, obviously, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, most other podcatchers, or Spreaker, which is our host. It sort of sends it to everything. But if you have any questions, you can even contact me, Alex, at ThisWeekInGeek.net, and I'll get back to you.
Well, That's our show.
All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.